Hey, Ellis County, Kevin Crouch here with Ellis County Weather with Jimmy Poarch.
Hello, Kevin.
You know his name if you've been following Ellis County Weather. He's my longest sponsor at this point, I think.
I'm honored. It's been fun.
First time and stuck around, so
Absolutely.
I hadn't scared him off yet.
No, it's been great. It's been great. I love looking out for tornadoes, and then I'm like, hey, there's my own face. And
right, there you go.
I'm sure y'all love seeing my face too.
There you go. So, we haven't added the twinkle animation on your teeth yet. But
I need that.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring Jimmy into our usual Tuesday Tips segment to talk about weather-related interests or questions or concerns, things that come into the process of buying or selling a home, primarily buying a home. Because if you're selling a home, you know what you've dealt with.
Right.
When you're getting a home, though, when we deal with severe weather as much as we do in North Texas, surely, I mean, those questions are going to come into play. Questions that, like you've kind of talked to me before this, some things you may not have ever thought of, or things that unique questions that you get from people who had a bad experience at their previous home, and now they're looking for something different. So tell me a little bit about some of those things that you told.
So there's a couple of things that have popped up recently, Kevin, and they're technology related, of course, right? That's everything. And the newest thing was we just upgraded our security system on our home. Okay, and so when we did that, we got the smartest technology, and you can control it from your phone, and there's just amazing things that you can do, and track your dogs, making sure they're coming in and out like there's all that fun stuff. So the other night, we're in our little makeshift tornado shelter, which is underneath the stairs, and we're watching Kevin, and we're watching live by live, but we just have taken precautionary measures to be in there. But once they tornado warning signaled on your phone, just like you get, and you were watching Kevin, and it goes off. Well, so somehow this upgraded, technologically advanced security system is also tied into the emergency response.
It's probably the emergency alert system, the same system that pings your phone, that just kind of sends out a signal. Yeah.
So of course we were trying to keep our girls calm and everything like that, and this thing just goes off throughout the whole house. So the whole house system that's set up to alert when the security system goes off also goes off for tornado warnings.
Wow.
And we learned that during a tornado warning.
Right.
so it was a really great piece of technology that undeniably would wake you up if you were asleep and there was a tornado, which is a very real concern. Yeah. But it can also be quite earth-shattering when you got a 7-year-old girl and you're trying to keep her calm and that thing goes off. But it went off twice that night. It's a great feature. I didn't even know I had it in the system. It was built in, and of course, if you've got a new system, that's something that you're aware of. And if you haven't gotten one yet, it's definitely worth the upgrade just to have that sense of security and everything. And so, but there was another really cool, we also upgraded our sprinkler system, and both of these things, they came after the fact. I didn't know I was getting these pieces of technology, but you've always probably had on your sprinkler system just kind of like a sensor, and if it rains, it'll kind of shut it off, or if it freezes, it'll shut off your sprinkler system. But this one is actually tied in, it's on my phone, and it's tied into some type of meteorological technology that not only tells you it's going to rain or what, it'll tell you when it rained, how much it rained, and how many days that you need to keep your sprinkler system off, and it'll automatically control that for your specific location. So it still has a rain meter, it'll measure it, and then it ties in and it tells you exactly, hey, you don't have to water for 3.5 days based on the temperature getting 88 degrees. It's all formulated. You put in what type of grass you have, what type of soil you have, and all those types of things. And then, of course, it knows the area. And so there's a couple of major upgrades that are weather related that can kind of make your life just so much easier. You don't have to turn the sprinkler system off. You don't have to, a lot of times those sprinkler systems, you'll get a 1/4 inch of rain, and you'll turn it off for a couple of days, and as hot as it gets in Texas, you might need to just continue watering.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, especially if the soil is starving.
Correct.
Or if it's thirsty, it's going to soak that in, and it's going to be like, all right, where's more? It's just going to immediately.
Right.
And that's actually going to be a future Tuesday tip segment is how to regulate your watering if you don't have an irrigation system like you do, and you're trying to figure out what that balance is. So in terms of safety, that kind of thing, when it comes to tornadoes and all that kind of stuff, safety is the name of the game.
Correct.
So are there questions that past clients of yours have asked regarding safety in severe weather events, and different things they've expressed to you that they might be looking at that are a little bit unique?
Specifically, there's always, especially like in the historic district of Waxahachie and these types of towns, we'll have these quirky old houses, and I live in one, so I understand it. And they'll say, okay, well, what is the safest spot? Generally, for me, my go-to space is under the stairs. That's just if it's available, or an interior room. That's what I have generally been telling people. And then there's a couple things that I've learned from you just when we did our live broadcast from Maypearl, that I learned about the importance of having a weather radio, because your cell phone, we're doing pretty good, but sometimes if your power goes out, you don't have TV. So having that weather radio is really important.
Right.
And then the constant reminder that you give us about the outdoor sirens. I think everybody probably, I know I did. I certainly thought that applied to me inside my house, but it doesn't. That,
right.
Obviously I'm listening for it and I'm paying attention, but those types of pieces of information. But the number one request that I get, what is the safest spot in the house? Obviously I'm not an expert in that. You are, but I can go through a house and say, hey, look, let's look for an interior room, something without windows.
Right.
And if you've got a closet under the stairs, make that your safe spot.
Yeah, and those older homes, usually the stairs are going to be pretty central,
right,
to the structure.
And I'm pretty biased on those old historic homes just because they're so solid. I understand the new technology and architecture and hurricane joists and all those kinds of things. Those are all amazing, but I'm still biased towards those old 100-year-old houses. I mean, they're just solid. You can't hardly knock them down if you wanted to.
Well, there's a reason they're still there.
There's a reason they're still there 100 years later.
Yeah.
My house has been there 136 years, and it hadn't fallen yet. So
right.
It's doing good.
Now, another segment we did was safe rooms.
Yes.
And so what I guess what kind of trends or what have you seen in terms of those places that have the safe rooms or the storm shelters and that kind of thing?
Yeah, and that was a really fun episode, and it really didn't pan out for us because we tried to film it inside the safe room, which was the metal was so thick that we couldn't get a signal, but it was fun because it's very rare that you actually see one, a real one like that. They're pretty rare. But the other thing is the tornado shelters, and we just sold a place out near Groesbeck that has a tornado shelter, and the underground units, and those, I think it's something that people they don't necessarily think about until it's too late. It's one of those things you don't really, when you're out looking at a house, it's not something you think about, but it's definitely a sales pitch to be able to say, hey, if and when that time comes, because in North Texas it does come, you're going to need to take cover, and you've got this. What's that worth to you?
Right.
That has an intrinsic value, right? And so I don't know how much those things cost. $5,000-$8,000. What do those things cost?
And, it really varies.
Yeah.
There's so much variation, not only in the model you get, but how they're constructed. Mm-hmm. It's hard to quote a price just because there's a lot of different variation,
different sizes. And I know that one of the big deals was on the house I sold that had the safe room in it was A&M engineered certified.
So, it's Texas Tech certified.
Oh, Texas Tech, sorry.
And Texas Tech, which I'm biased, but
went to A&M, sorry.
Texas Tech is one of those places where they actually will take a 2x4 and fire it at 100 miles an hour at these shelters and at these plates of metal to see how well they fare in F5 force winds.
Right.
That's how they earn that certification. And I would be lying if I said I, didn't want to go and press that button somewhere. So if you work in the meteorological department at Texas Tech, and you need a substitute to go in and press the big red button and fire one of these things, I am definitely a volunteer.
Definitely.
It's that certification is really important to have because that means that it has been tested. You're not looking at this going, we think that's enough. These things are actually put through the ringer, and at that point, for sure. Yeah.
So another thing that I was thinking about that I wanted to talk to you about is, especially this time of year when it really starts to heat up, or I should say it's a little early this year, but it's heating up. But is windows, foam insulation, all those types of things. And people now on the MLS system, which is our multiple listing service, when we list houses for sale, we're literally printing out digitally. We're compiling all the electric bills. We'll go back 12 months and put them in our MLS system. So when somebody goes to look at a house, they can determine how energy efficient this house is, because so you can go in and you can say, okay, this is how much electricity it costs, depending on whether they have a pool or they've got 2 air conditioning systems or 1 or 3, whatever they have, 1-story, 2-story. You got 2 thermostats. How are you regulating all this, and how energy efficient is this home? Because as interest rates rise, the price of owning that same home that you're trying to buy is going up, and so you've got to put the electric bill in your budget. Modern homes, it's very affordable, but you get into these older homes, you better check twice, and you want to know how much kilowatts they're using, because those old, original, beautiful pane glass windows, they're gorgeous.
I know,
but they're not energy efficient.
Right.
And the insulation on these old houses is very minimal, oftentimes, and those things can be mitigated by new windows and new insulation, and relatively affordable. So that's something that we see the people, especially if you get into the larger houses, they say, well, how much is this costing a month to cool this place? You know?
Yeah.
So, and then the other variable too, you look at people, and some people keep their rooms, at 75, and they're conservative, and then there's people that can't sleep unless it's 65 degrees. I don't know how they pay those bills, but I don't know. But that's something that you want to know, and that's something that we can show. Hey, we're keeping this house at 72 degrees 24/7, and it's costing you an average of $242 a month, or whatever the number is.
Right.
That's something that we can provide, and that's something that you should ask for. You should ask for those electric bills. I say electric bills, but gas, water, all of the above. You want to make sure that you're getting something that you can afford, including all the utilities.
Now, what about flood concerns? I'm sure that comes into play at times, because there are parts of Ellis County, especially if you're right next to a creek or something of that sort.
Yeah.
How does that play in?
Great question. So a lot of times people always tell me, hey, I'm going to buy a few acres with some trees on it and stuff like that. Okay, trees are great, but they do require water, which means if there's a lot of trees, there's probably a lot of water. So what we do is we go back to FEMA, and we look at their floodplain. And the floodplain, it moves, okay? So, and it kind of changes along with government regulation, and they move it out and they move it in, and they look at these 100-year floodplains, they look at the 500-year floodplains, and then if you're within certain areas of floodplains, they're going to require that it's engineered, that you actually do a study. But generally speaking, they're going to, when you go through your title company, and this is part of the process that the title company does, is they purchase a flood certificate. I think they're about $12, and that's just one of the itemized fees that's on your closing documents that we'll review. And what that does is that provides that you're out of a floodplain. If you're in the floodplain, then you're going to be required to buy flood insurance, and that's a whole nother animal to tackle. It's not necessarily extraordinarily expensive. Kind of depends if you're in the 500-year floodplain or the 100-year floodplain, but you definitely want to make sure that you're not in that floodplain, especially if you're going to build. That is part of the process that the title company helps you. And as soon as we do a lot of farm and ranch, and so as soon as we pull up a piece of land, that's one of the first things that we check is that floodplain. Where is it? How close is it? And where do you want to build? Right. You may be able to not be able to build on the creek. You're going to have to. You might have to move some dirt and things like that. But moving dirt, a lot of people think you can just move some dirt. That all goes through FEMA. You have to be approved. You got to get a flood certificate. You need to do all kinds of studies, and that's why you see low areas with a lot of trees that nothing's been built on, because that's in your floodplain. But those are very important questions to ask and to look at to make sure that you're not going to be in a bad situation when a flood comes, like in Red Oak a few years ago. The Red Oak Creek flooded. It had not been cleaned out in many, many years, and these people were outside of the floodplain, but we had so much rain in such a short period of time. It just come out of the creek so quick that there was nothing that they could do. So definitely something to entertain and look at when you're buying a house or buying land or building a house. You want to make sure that you look at that.
Right. Awesome. Well, that gives you a little bit of a taste. I'm sure there'll be things that we can bring up in the future as well.
Absolutely.
And I want to give you a chance to kind of just promote whatever you have going on right now.
Thank you, Kevin.
If there's a particular listing you want people to look at, or just a website, or whatever the case might be, just kind of tell us where to find you.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that opportunity. So basically, this is selling season. We're in May, and I always tell people, hey, if you're going to list your house, get it in the books by May. We've got Gingerbread Trail coming to Waxahachie, so that's going to bring a ton of lookers into our community. This is the time to get on the market. Really, within the next 2 to 3 weeks is when things really start to heat up. I say that being that the real estate market hasn't cooled down in about 6 years, but with these interest rates, we're watching it very, very closely. But it's a great time to sell. Still getting top dollar. Inventory is incredibly low. Inventory today is lower than it was at the very peak of COVID. We had very few houses to sell. So if one pops up, you're going to get top dollar for it. It's a great time to sell. Definitely check me out, Jimmy Poarch, Have You Real Estate page, which you always share. Thank you. And Have You Real Estate, you can check out our website, and I would be honored to list your house if you're looking to sell. Be glad to run the numbers for you just to kind of see where we think we might be selling in this seller's market.
Awesome. I can tell you that Jimmy does his research. He knows his stuff. So he is a great pick for you to go to with any questions that you might have. So as far as the weather is concerned, make sure you're following lscountyweather.com to get the latest forecast information. Follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well for all the latest updates there. Jimmy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.